Today I want to talk about burnout in women, but not as a productivity problem, not as something that means that there's something wrong with you, but as something that makes deep psychological sense when we look at how much women carry, how early we learn to carry it all, how rarely we're taught to stop before our bodies force us to stop. Before we talk about rest, energy, and boundaries, I want to begin with self-validation. Because without self-validation, even good advice feels like another task. In dialectical behavior therapy, especially in the work of Alan Frazzetti and his colleagues, self-validation is a process of taking yourself seriously. It means allowing yourself to feel what you feel, think what you think, and want what you want. Accepting yourself without any judgment or any criticism, without second guessing yourself, and without attacking yourself. It is very important to understand that self-validation doesn't mean that you think that everything you do is correct or that you don't have to change. No, it means that before change can happen, your experience has to be recognized and understood. You acknowledge reality before you start changing it. When I work with women in their late 30s and 40s, I see a very consistent pattern. Women are holding work, home, children, parents, emotional labor, relationships, conflict, finances, and they are expected to remain composed, capable, and pleasant. Nice. From a self-validation perspective, exhaustion is totally legitimate and understandable. You can see where it's coming from. Frazzetti describes validation as something that reduces emotional arousal and increases flexibility. Even when your life doesn't change, and change takes time, self-validation is needed to regulate your nervous system. It must be your daily practice. I want to slow down here because many women think that they are already validating themselves when they're actually still judging themselves, just in a softer voice. Self-validation begins with mindfulness. Step 1, mindful noticing without judgment. It is difficult. So you need to learn to notice what is happening inside you without immediately trying to assess it or correct it or evaluate it. Noticing your thoughts, emotions, bodily sensations as if like you were observing weather. Just observe, describe, and not judge. So, for instance, instead of saying, I shouldn't feel this way, you say something closer to. Right now, I notice tightness in my chest. I feel my heart is beating, and I have an urge to perform. You're not agreeing with the thought. You're simply noticing that it exists. Noticing without judgment. But judgment jumps in, but just let it go. Step 2, identify primary emotions. You can learn to identify primary emotions, and I'd say please learn to do that. They're the first emotional response to a situation, and usually it's not anger, but anger covers them. Primary emotions can be shame, guilt, anxiety. We have anger iceberg where anger is on top, but underneath we have primary emotions that we need to learn to acknowledge. For example, like this, under my irritation, I notice sadness and fatigue. When the primary emotion is recognized, intensity of stress decreases. Step 3, allowing without losing control. You need to learn to allow an emotion without acting impulsively. And it doesn't mean that you have to shut down. It means that you are letting this emotion exist while you are in charge of your behavior, not your emotion. So for instance, what you can say internally or externally, like self-talk, this emotion is here and I can carry it without hurting myself or anyone else. This is what it means to take your experience seriously without letting it run your life. Step 4, radical acceptance. It's part of self-validation, and it means that you're honestly acknowledging reality as it is, not as you wish it were. Radical acceptance sounds like, so given my workload, my history, my responsibilities, it makes total sense that my energy is low right now and I should stop and not push myself. So it helps to stop this fight with reality. And I have a video on reality testing, and I think it's important for us all to do this from time to time. test reality. Another step is check in how you respond to yourself in action. Instead of criticizing yourself for being overwhelmed and not coping, you can normalize the emotion. You can say, my exhaustion makes sense. At the same time, I need to stop adding tasks to today. Self-validation includes nurturing yourself, seeking support, and treating yourself with the same respect you would offer someone you deeply care about. When you are unsure how to respond, a very good question is, and I ask myself all the time, if someone I love and respect were in this situation, how would I speak to her? And then you try to speak to yourself that way. Once for a week, I was trying to do that, and I was a bit shocked how much I criticized myself. Then another thing to help with burnout is energy battery check-in. It's a practical tool. So instead of asking yourself whether you are productive enough or doing enough, you ask yourself one question: where is my energy right now? So you can imagine your energy as a battery, and it has 100%, 50%, and 0%. You need to learn what is your 100%. 100% energy is your most vital state. Breath is steady, thoughts are flexible, calm, emotions are not overwhelming, behavior is intentional and not reactive. Your senses are not overloaded. You're not over-explaining. You're not rushing. Self-validation here sounds like, this is what balance feels like in my body. You need to learn your 0%. 0% energy is your body and mind protective response. It may look like numbness, irritability, total withdrawal, mental fog, anger. So self-validation at 0% when you're depleted sounds like, my system is depleted and it's trying to protect me. Nothing needs to be fixed. It needs to be acknowledged. Then you learn your 50%, and I see it as a critical zone. Maybe your critical zone is 30 or 20, but I noticed that a lot of burnout starts at 50%. So you still function, but your flexibility decreases, you're more reactive, less tolerant. So this is where self-validation can help you. Self-validation at 50% can sound like, I am still going, but I am no longer resourced. And this recognition gives you a choice, because oftentimes we just slide to 0 without even noticing it. So choice to restore your senses. When your energy is at 50% or lower, you don't have to push through. You need to start restoring your energy. And it can happen through different sensory systems. Through vision, by softening your gaze, stepping away from screens. Through touch, with warmth, pressure, physical comfort. Through sound, silence maybe, or some music. Through smell and taste, with familiar grounding sensations. Through emotion, by naming what you feel without fixing it. Through behavior, by slowing tasks and removing unnecessary tasks. I think that this is our nervous system hygiene, psychohygiene. Why I think it helps to prevent burnout? Because burnout develops when internal signals are consistently invalidated in the name of responsibility. And when you validate yourself earlier at 50% instead of 0, your nervous system no longer needs to escalate symptoms to get your attention. Some people have to get sick to stop, right? It's the only way to get their attention for their bodies. We don't want to get there. So for the overwhelmed 40-year-old woman who carries home, work, parents, relationships, conflict, friends, everything, the plan is not to be perfect at all. The plan is to learn to stop. The most important sentence I want to leave you with: you do not need to collapse in order to stop. You are allowed to pause while you still have energy, while you still have resources, while you still have strength, so you don't get to 0. Burnout is information. When you learn to listen earlier, you will be able to prevent it. I hope you feel great today. Take care.